Welcome to the Must Reads interview series sponsored by the Perkins Center for Preaching Excellence. I'm Wes Allen, and I'm excited to have with me today HyeRan Kim-Cragg, who serves as the principal and the Timothy Eaton Memorial Church Professor of Preaching at Emmanuel College of Victoria University at the University of Toronto. Whew. Dr. Kim-Cragg is joining us today because she has written a book entitled Postcolonial Preaching, Creating a Ripple Effect. HyeRan, welcome to Must Reads. This is a timely book. Postcolonial studies intersecting with theological studies is still fairly new, and you're one of only a few who have begun bringing that into conversation with homiletics as well. It's a complex conversation. We can't do full justice to it in our short time, but I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just starting us off by sort of defining colonial and post-colonial for our viewers to get an understanding of what we mean by that.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's an honor and a delight. So thanks, Wes, for initiating this wonderful conversation. So the post-colonial, that very term is very contested. Because when you say post, you automatically think post is over, right? Or after. But in terms of the theory, in terms of the like a thinking framework and a field of study, post-colonial embraces both and reality. So in other words, post-colonial is a term that points out that reality, that on one hand, colonialism has ended, and yet colonialism has not ended. So for example, I grew up in Korea. Korea has been colonized by Japanese imperialism during the Second World War. And then right after that, we also has a very severe American imperial kind of militarization and so on, right? So that era of the Japanese colonialism ended as of 1945, but we are still having the impact of that. Also, our own economic growth and Christian growth, that we as a Korean society become a colonial, meaning we sending our missionaries, we think that we know better than any other places. So is it colonial or is it not colonial? And so it is that reality, right? It's very contradictory. So it's both true.
So
that's the one. That's the one we are talking about.
I see. So a lot to do with sort of systemic cultural power structures where one political or ethnic or whatever group assumes some kind of dominance and normalcy that others are then subjected to, and it becomes oppressive and is intersexual in that
absolutely
that it's not just one group and one group, it's bunches of groups, and it's messy and ugly and horrific at times.
Yes.
So go on.
So one of the post-colonial theories and studies and approaches that are very helpful for us to grapple with the reality is that we try not to become binary. We try not to be just oppositional, because in some ways, within our own, depending on your own privileges, you could be an oppressor, but then you are also at the same time being oppressed by the system.
So then what does this look like for preaching? How does one embrace the kind of preaching you want to, so that it has the ripple effect you're calling for?
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. So I would say from the beginning of the preaching, I think whether it's a Bible, like just saying Apostle Paul, right? The Paul himself was a privileged, right, as a Greek speaking, but oppressed as a Jew in a Roman Empire situation, right? So I think as long as the preaching deals with the biblical context and that reality, we are already dealing with kind of post-colonial reality. But the challenge for preaching that is so compelling, if we want to go that way, is that the so-called the biblical world rooted in scripture that has some relevance and resonance with the 21st century preaching world, right? And that kind of context and text, that interplay is always an issue. And if preachers do that well, right, then you really making an impact. For me, that's the ripple effect. So postcolonial preaching does those well. So very much dealing with the histories of colonialism, which is modern European, but I think in terms of the biblical world, that's ancient, also imperial colonial realities, right? So we are taking that really seriously, but without also losing sight of today, and that today shaping the future of tomorrow, right? So preaching in terms of the kind of a goal, the arch, toward more just, more caring, where God is mostly glorified, right? So those are the issue. I subtitled the book Postcolonial Preaching as a creating a ripple impact, is because to me, preaching is never a quick fix.
Yeah.
It should be a sustained practice. As a preacher doing that as a spiritual discipline, but as a congregation, the hearers, the participants in preaching events need to be also cultivate their own vocation, their own discipleship, their own role in the world in such a way that it's not just I do that today, check off, tomorrow I do something else, right? It's a formational and toward the transformational. So ripple effect is that kind of phenomenon that you make a difference, but still very humble, right? Because in some ways, we are only the instrument, and where God is already at work and making a difference.
Well, I appreciate the work so much, and I appreciate that, especially that it's not about a post-colonial sermon. It's about a post-colonial homiletical practice, as you name, a perspective of going to the text, of addressing today's situations all together from this point of view. So, HyeRan, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and I hope our viewers will go out and get a copy of your book and read it and bring it into their pulpit. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wes. Blessings.